Hi everyone, it's William Trainer here. Thank you for watching this tutorial on my Easy Target lead generator template. Just a couple of things. The reason I've developed this template, which is an Excel model, is to, take the data out of Easy Target lead generator and utilize another tool to help me analyze it in certain ways. I must say, first and foremost, Easy Target Lead Generator is, I think, an absolutely brilliant tool. I'm just starting out in building my offline business. I think what you find with Easy Target Lead Generator is the data that it pulls back, and certainly I've spent the last few weeks working through it in quite a lot of detail. While it looks quite simple on the face of it, as you're looking at the screen there, knowing what it takes to go to sites and ascertain whether they actually have Facebook page or email capture, etc., is quite an intensive process. So don't be fooled by the simplicity. I think certainly the tool just keeps improving with every release. But and again, just the reason why I've built this extra tool, if you like, to help me is that when I look across here, and this is fantastic, of course, but let's say like I'm targeting companies for mobile websites at the moment. I can look and I can see, yes, okay, they have LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. They don't. Mobile website, that's good. So I can target those guys, but I wanted a way to really try and, ascertain what the, call it, low-hanging fruit are, which in the first training video, first webinar with Adam and Lee, that's what they were talking about, and that's sort of a process I'm going through. I'm not 100% sure yet whether it's going to bear fruit, so to speak, in terms of the way I'm doing it, but it's certainly, from my point of view, I feel it's a good way to go. So just to show you what I do, essentially, and Adam mentioned in the webinar that he just exports the data out of Easy Target Lead Generator and gets rid of everybody who has a mobile website and just looks at the nose. Okay, so I've sort of, taken that a step further, and essentially this is a process I go through. So just make sure we haven't got any directory styles in there. Okay, let's change the data. I just go File, Export to XLS, and I believe that there could be coming, I certainly asked through the help desk, a copy to clipboard option 2, which would be great, because doing what I'm doing here just takes a bit of time. So ETLG, I'd just call it ETLG.xls, so just for whatever it's worth, call it whatever you want, doesn't really matter, but I just overwrite that file each time. So now I've exported that data out. Okay, what I'll do now is I'll take you to the template and show you, and this is essentially it. So just to explain what we've got here, this is the area where the data will be entered from that export. As you can see, it essentially mirrors what's on Easy Target Lead Generator, so it is the same columns, and obviously I'm going to be changing this as further things are added. I think John said early on that the likes of YouTube, etc., might be added in as well, so I'll be able to customize this. Okay. What we have here is 2 additional columns. One is a number of services, and one is a % optimized. Now, these are just basically what I've done here is I've just, as you'll see when I put data in, essentially I'm just capturing how many out of, in this case right now, 8 services does the business have. So of course if it's 4, or when the 4 goes in there, 4 out of 8, so it just counts the number of yeses essentially. And the optimized, again, just being a bit of a numbers man, the optimized is just a way for me to sort that, I guess, and get my head around it. So of course if it's 4 out of 8, it's 50%, if it's 5, it's, I think it's 63, etc. So it's just a quick calculation. What we have over here too is, if you click this little cross here, for those that aren't familiar with this function, it'll open up a group, and a group, as it's called, all you need to do once you've finished with it is close it down again. Okay. Now, to show you what's in this group, what I have here is a number of columns. Okay, I've got reference as a start point, which essentially reference is when I'm determining which clients or potential clients to send to, I'll give them a name. So for example, for London dentist, it might be LD1 or whatever it might be. When I send out a letter to them, I'm capturing that date. But this is the most important part, and you do have to go into each website and pull this data out. But the business name, what their address is, obviously the contact, if there is a contact, I find with dentists, for example, it might be a practice principle, or perhaps there might be a specific dentist. You don't really know sometimes. Email and telephone. So this is just contact details that I can use at a later point. And obviously it takes a little bit of time to set this up, but it's all there anyway. So we'll close this down and go back to where we were. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you how I populate this. So if I go open, I've just realized it's not actually there at the moment. Okay, so I'm just going to open the ETLG file. So open that up. It does that. Yep. Okay, just put your cursor, your mouse in this case A2. For those that aren't familiar with a shortcut, just hold your Control and Shift key at the same time, then hit your down arrow, take it to the bottom of all the active cells, as it's called, and then while you're still doing that, while you're still holding Control and Shift, hit your right arrow key, and that'll capture all that data. Or of course you can just drag and drop, but I just prefer to do it that way. Okay, Control C. We go back to our template. Okay, make sure you're in I2, so in other words, the first spot. Now this is important. This is very important. What you want to do is right-click, paste special values. Now the reason you do that is because there's a lot of formatting and formulas in this thing. So if you overwrite it, you just paste straight in, it'll overwrite it. So you don't want to do that. Thank you. Okay, bang. Okay. Now what you can see here, what I've done is I've formatted it so that every time there's a yes, it's green. Every time there's a no, it's red. Pretty bright, but you get the idea. In this particular case too, because I'm targeting mobile websites, what I've done is I've just also made it so that these go yellow when there's a no in this column. So it just helps me sort it. That's all that really does. Okay. If you go across here, you'll see that, as I said before, you've got a number of services plus optimize. So if they've got 2, we've got 25. If I don't have any of them, then obviously 0, 3 is 38, etc. You'll also see that the color is a bit different in this column. And again, it's just my way of working this through. What my theory is that if a potential client has a number of services like a Facebook page, an email capture, maybe paid advertising. I mean, these guys are probably a good example, but they don't have a mobile website. They don't have a mobile app. And I find in most cases, anyone who doesn't have a mobile website certainly doesn't have a mobile app. This is probably one of the exceptions that I've seen this guy here. So while yes, on one hand you think, well, you can't sell them a Facebook page as a second upsell, like in time if you get them as a client, there's still other things you can do, such as SEO, such as driving traffic to that Facebook page, etc., etc. So my theory is that these people are probably more likely to, at this point in time, be easier to sell to, if you like, the concept of a mobile website. And my thought is that to do mobile websites, I love the idea that John was saying in terms of mobile apps are a huge opportunity. I think to walk into, this is my personal opinion, but to walk into a business that already has a number of different social media functions and obviously paid advertising in this case, and try and get them to buy a mobile website is probably going to be an easier sell than a mobile app up front. But that doesn't mean that's just my personal opinion. So I just put that in there. So this is how I now use this tool. What I do is I go to this filter here. You'll see there's filters on the top. Click Optimize. Okay. Then what I do is I sort largest to smallest. Okay. That's now moved all the data. So all of these URLs have now been sorted based on how many of these services these companies have. So in this case, it's obviously 6 out of 8, so it's 75. Now, the reason why these are different colors, different greens, etc., again, it's just my way of doing it, is that, someone that's got 6 out of 8, I would think is a pretty easy target in terms of being able to sell them the concept. See, these guys have an app, that'll be one we saw before, but they don't have a mobile website. So of course they've got everything else, so they mightn't be the easiest ones in the world to sell, to sell other services to. But then that said, if you do a good job, you might be able to pick up other business through them. You'll see that this is still green. Anything down to about a 50, I'm saying, so we've got 4 out of 8. I'm saying that I think they're still good targets. Anything under 50, I've said red. Obviously, by the time it gets to 0, then I wouldn't even touch these yet, because I think, well, doesn't mean they won't buy a mobile website. If they don't have any of these other things, getting them to buy a mobile website might be difficult. So now that I've got it sorted that way, what I then do first and foremost is I usually sort it and grab just the yeses, and I see, so for example, I'll show you. So you click that, click this select all. For those that aren't familiar with this, click yes, and there's only 2 that have mobile websites. So what I would do is I would go to that particular website. I'd then take the URL. I'd also first, because I find with some businesses it's hard to get details, so as in address details and so on. So I'd find out whether they're available, and if I can't find them on this, I might, on the website, I might go to manta.com or manta.com for those who aren't familiar, which is good for business addresses worldwide. But then what I'd do is I'd open that the mobilizer tool, which Adam and Lee went through in the first webinar, and I put the URL into that. I sometimes use iPhone4simulator.com as well, just as a backup, because sometimes I find mobilizer doesn't work, but most of the time it does. It's pretty good. Save that that image, and then of the one that's got the app, and then that is my, if you like, competitive or comparative one that I would show businesses as their as I'm trying to sell businesses and saying, hey, look what your competitors are doing. So that's the first step. But then probably even more importantly, get rid of those, and we just this time, so just hit select all to get all, and then select all to unselect, hit no. Okay, so what we're now looking at are websites that have businesses that have no mobile website. Sorry, I've done it on the wrong column. That was clever. Do that, a mobile website. Okay. Alright, so we mentioned this mob here before. Same deal, I would go through, I would check their website, I put it into Mobilizer just to make sure that it is actually definitely not a mobile website. Occasionally you find that there is one, or it says there is and there isn't. I mean, it's very hard to pick that exactly. But I'm finding the software is pretty darn accurate with most of them. And then I'd save that image of their website in the Mobilizer, little iPhone screen thing, and then I'd use that as a comparison. Now, what I'd probably do is I tend to look and I say, well, I mean, by default, if I've got 4 to 5 to 6, they've got a Facebook and a Twitter, etc. But I'm still looking and saying, okay, most of these guys have most of this stuff, but occasionally you might find one that that doesn't have. Like, for example, I might hit Facebook and go, they don't have Facebook. Now in this particular case, you'll find that probably because they're all pretty up with it, these guys, the dentists in London by the look of it, there's a lot here that just don't have Facebook at all. If I said, okay, which ones do have Facebook? Again, it's just sorting, and it's just saying now it's optimized from top to bottom. It's only companies without a mobile website, and it's only companies also that have Facebook. Okay, so it just gives you a different way to dice the data, or cut and dice the data. And then I'm saying, as a start point, if a company has Facebook and Twitter, it's probably a good target. I realize that probably does minimize the number of services you can offer companies like that, but seeing I'm just starting out, my theory is that, well, if I can get those guys on board, that's a good start, and hopefully do some other stuff for them. Just one more little thing over here. If you click that group button again, meant to mention before, you may have to on occasion hit view freeze panes, unfreeze panes, which basically stops it. Make sure the first column is showing the whole time. I'd go over here and I put notes. So sometimes I find that if a company does have a mobile website and the software says it doesn't, or vice versa, or it's got no address or whatever. Some trades I find don't have addresses, like plumbers and that are pretty hard to get addresses for, so it's pretty hard to send them letters when you don't have addresses. I write that stuff in here. Okay, so now just one very last thing. The way I would personally do it is I would have, in this case, say it's dentists in London. Sorry, I should say, once I go through, and let's say I've chosen DL1, say DL2, DL3. Alright, so we've got to say it's 3 dentists for argument's sake. I'd hit reference. All I've got to do here is hit blank. So in other words, anything that doesn't have writing in it, like 1, 2, or 3, you get rid of. Okay, so hit blanks to unselect it, hit OK, and now I've just got a clean list, which obviously I'll have my company details in here if I open that out, of the ones I'm targeting. And if you did want to, you can even sort that A to Z, or from top to bottom, or whatever. So there's all different things you can do with them. Okay, one very last thing, what I would do is If it was dentist, for example, I would save it as a file called, dentist, and then I would open out different tabs for different cities. It's just one way of doing it. So for those that may not be familiar, where it says city 1, you can right click that and you can rename it. So let's say it's London for argument's sake, and then click out of it. But then if you right click it again and go unhide, I've put in, I think it's 10 blank sheets in here. So you could open up another one. Let's say you just done your data and you could say, Birmingham or whatever it may be, and then you can save that as your file. I'd say it as ETLG dentist or whatever it might be. So look, I hope that's been useful. Certainly if there's any questions, one thing I must say too is this has been built in Excel 2007. I would think if somebody has an older version, the formatting or the coloring will not work with this version, but I think it should be possible to build a version that has that in it if you have something earlier than Excel 2007. Given it we're in 2013, I thought majority of people would probably have 2007 and upwards. But if there's any queries with that, perhaps either via the comments below this video or back via John, let him know. That would be terrific, and I hope that's been helpful. Thank you.